to our dad on the Jim Cressman podcast.
Welcome to the Jim Cressman podcast. With me today, we've got Clifton Murray of the Tenors, formerly known to many of you as the Canadian Tenors. Now, the Tenors, if you're unfamiliar, they're a platinum and multi-platinum Juno award-winning operatic pop group.
Ish.
Yeah, ish. They've built a substantial following around the world.
Yes.
Right now, Clifton is actually in the United States. He's talking to us from there. And they perform for Oprah. They perform for the Queen. And they are about to go across Canada on a Christmas tour with Tyler Shaw. And man, you guys must be just so excited to get back out on the road after this forced convalescence we've all been dealing with.
Oh, yeah. We were just talking before the podcast here, before Jimmy hit record. and we were saying just, you know, how different it is to do a virtual over a live experience, and just that spiritual heart connect that really drives the why behind what we're doing in terms of connecting and feeling that emotion, that powerful visceral experience with a live concert is so hard to replicate anywhere else in life. And I'm just so excited to get back on the road. It gives me like a sense of worth, sense of self. Like when you're off the road, you got to really stay on top of, you know, your emotions and your energy, because, you know, trying to duplicate or replicate that experience when you're off the road can be tough. And there's a lot of, you know, rabbit holes you can go down, as we were saying. But I think the cool thing about getting back on the road after this time away is having, I think, just a deeper gratitude for what we do. And, you know, we've done it for 11 years. And not to say that you can get jaded, because we haven't at all. But I think just stepping away, you know, time away makes the heart grow fonder, that whole statement. You come back and you're like, wow, we have been so blessed to, you know, do what we do, what we love for so long, to have such a strong and passionate fan base that's there whenever we go out on the road, all over the world, and especially here in North America. Just really recharge my batteries. And I'm just so deeply grateful for the response that we got for the single that just came out with Tyler Shaw. It's the #1 most added song on Hot AC and AC radio right now, which is just crazy to think. So we're super stoked about that collaboration with Tyler. What a great dude. We connected back at the Santa Claus Parade 2018. We were both hosting the Santa Claus Parade from Toronto. And then we just hit it off, and we just became buds. And then this year he's like, listen, Cliff, I'm doing a Christmas album. I want to do the biggest, you know, blowout Christmas song there is, with all the bells and whistles. And I know you guys, you know, do Christmas in a big way. So what's the song? And we landed on Oh Holy Night, which really is the, you know, the biggest Christmas song you can do. And his producer, Pills, did a fantastic job taking a song we've already done, we've already recorded, and just giving it a new contemporary pop twist. So it's that blend of classical timeless Christmas with this new edgy pop radio sensibility, and it's freaking awesome. I love the track. I love what they did with it.
So back to the live side of it, though, you're right. There's this cathartic energy reciprocation between you and a live audience that just can't be replicated in the virtual shows or the drive-in shows, which we even did a bunch of last year with Brett.
Yeah, he did a great job on the Kissel ones. Like, he really tried, because with the wraparound semis, you know, trying to get as close as he could with the audience and making them feel a part of it, and people hitting the horns and hanging out of the sky roofs in their trucks. I thought it was pretty cool, like, visually watching it, but yeah, definitely
it's not the same.
Nothing beats getting right up close, you know, feeling that audience, that wave of emotion that literally elevates your experience. Like, when we write a song and we record it in the studio, right? You're in there and you have all the time in the world to get the best take that you can come up with, that you can muster in that moment. And you put it on the album, you put it out there, and then you take it on the road. And then, like 10 songs in, you've found these nuanced riffs and moments and ways of performing it that came from the audience, that came from that connection with them because the spirit was kind of working through you. You
Yeah.
were getting out of the way. You had nothing to do with the song anymore. And it was just, you were just a channel for the song to go through you. And you're like, man, I want to re record this song, you know, just to bring that live emotion to it. So, so excited, man, that we're back doing what we love. And the fans have been pretty vocal. And so we're excited that we're out there finally, man. It's great.
I think too that a lot of artists, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when they're idle, they're stir crazy.
Yeah.
And something about the discipline and routine of being on the road and
Yeah.
lobby calls and just having a schedule feels right to many of them. And when they get off the road, that's when they start having problems.
Idle hands does the devil's work. So I got to
So
keep busy.
true.
I got to keep busy.
So
I love the
how do
road.
you occupy your time? Like obviously the last 18 months is a bit of an anomaly. Well, it's a
It is,
massive
yeah.
anomaly,
Uh,
but
One off, hopefully. Let's.
yeah, yeah, please. Hopefully, or maybe you and I will be doing something different outside of the music
Right.
industry. It's just
24
wild.
hour live stream podcasts.
Yeah, totally.
Just kill the time.
But how did you refocus that energy and that ambition when you knew you couldn't be out on the road and you couldn't receive that fulfilling
Mm,
feeling that really makes you feel whole?
right.
How did you occupy your time in a manner that felt productive to you?
So we're getting real here. Is this what we're doing? All right.
That's what we're
Uh,
doing.
that's what we're
We have
doing.
an Oprah moment. Here we
You know,
go.
we're having a Cressman moment. No, it's good.
One millionth of the audience, but we're having an Oprah moment. Damn it! Here
That's
we
good.
go.
Amen.
Yeah.
So the truth is, like, when I'm on the road, like you said, I'm like disciplined. I'm at my my best weight. You know, I'm working out 5 days a week. When we show up to the venues, we got a whole table set up for cold pressed juices. We got our smoothies prepped and ready. You know, we got our whole meal plan organized with the chefs that come in, and it's all like heavy, healthy proteins and lots of vegetables and complex carbs. And that's something that is hard to replicate when you're home because you got to do it all on your own, which just sounds a little, like elitist as I'm saying it, but that's just the fact of the matter because you got to do everything you can to stay healthy. Because when you're touring as often as we are and as often as your artists are, you can't afford to get sick. You can't afford to have a couple off days or be down for a week because the machine is going and you got to get up on that stage. And there's nothing worse than getting up there and being sick, having no voice, not being able to connect with the audience. Thank God for adrenaline that helps you get past when you have a couple off days. But there is that regiment that I really love on the road. And
And so do you try to replicate that at home as much as possible so that you can stay on track and your physiology can contribute
yeah,
positively to your
yeah.
psychology?
So I'm kind of a binge guy. Like I'll go crazy, healthy, focused meditations, workouts, eating plans, smoothies, green juices for like an extended period of time, and then I'll kind of like drop off, and I'll just kind of like veg for like a couple weeks, 3 weeks. And the older I get, the less I can afford to do that. So I got to find that balance. And so when I'm home, um, I I I try and do a little bit of intermittent fasting, which I find really helps. So try not to eat super late. These are like sort of we're getting into granular here, but the eating late thing really kind of like sets the body back.
Do you do
Uh,
like the starting eating at 10 a.m. and stop eating at 6 p.m. or what's your
I'm more
regimen?
I'm more 12/8.
Okay,
Yeah.
12
And
8.
that's the hope anyway. And then if I do creep into 9, I have to push it to 1 the next day. And I'll have a coffee and then I'll wait for that first meal. But that always helps. And then the first meal of the day, make sure it's not like heavy sugar. Make sure it's like more protein if you can and some vegetables. And then you can kind of in the second meal, you can kind of do whatever you want. And then a good, awesome smoothie with everything. Get yourself like a really good multi-purpose greens protein powder, which just covers all the bases. And I think that takes the pressure off of having to really think about everything you're eating. Just get one of those great smoothies that have everything you need in it with your omegas and your vitamins. And
So did you learn to do this? Like, did you go out like most people when they're young and party and drink and indulge in some of the temptations and
Yeah.
then sort of realize that just can't be the way long term? Or did you always have that discipline?
Um, no, I didn't. I was an athlete my whole life, and I kind of rested on my laurels a little bit because I was sort of like naturally athletic. I think early on, I played collegiate rugby. I was training for Olympics and high jump. I played a lot of basketball. Really enjoyed just being physical and active, and it was something that I was just naturally gifted at. And I was doing a lot of music, so I was always in shape, but I wasn't the guy like in the gym, like counting my reps, really getting focused on it, isolating and just I was just kind of like always active, and it was just a lot of fun. And then I had a shoulder injury in university, which took me out of rugby sort of career. That was the end of it. It was a paralyzed left deltoid. So this little baby doesn't work here. And at the same time, diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is a heart condition. Now it's like super benign, but it took like 15, 20 years for the doctors to get to that diagnosis. They're doing Holter monitors every year and testing me and ECG tests and just making sure I don't drop dead suddenly, because that's sort of like that's the condition that you always hear about. Oh, this athlete was working out in the hot sun and he dropped dead all of a sudden. Finds out that he had the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So it kind of scared everyone into like having me like quit sports, which was kind of unfortunate. But some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers, because it redirected me into music, right? Thank you, Garth.
Right.
And that was, I think, the impetus to really focus in on music as a career. I started in acting, and then I was in like a gospel choir, and that kept my vocal chops. And I wanted to be a solo pop artist, and then the tenors called, and that's kind of when really the regiment of touring and the road and discipline really kicked in high gear. So, and not until did I join the tenors did I have a real consistent focus on health and stamina and a regiment and diet and all that kind of stuff. And that's also
But
around the same.
your athletic background probably lent itself quite handily to that new regime that you would put in place so that you could show up at your best every night. Now,
Yeah.
did you ever have aspirations to be a solo artist, or when the tenors called, did that just feel like the right thing right from the beginning? Because I know some of the guys in the band all had solo careers at one point, and they sort of had to resign their aspirations on that front to come
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
as this unit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think every artist that starts out in the music career is kind of thinking about creating a path for their creativity to shine, and that traditionally takes the path of a solo career in the mind. Uh, I will say that being with the tenors, the Canadian tenors, is like the greatest thing in the world. It's the best thing in my life aside from my wife and kid, and it fulfills me completely. Early on, I wanted to be like a John Mayer, singer songwriter on guitar. I went on Canadian Idol. I got on the show, and Canada got to see what I did. I was on the show with like Carly Rae Jepsen. I think Brian Mello won that year, and I got a taste of what it's like to be in that kind of larger spotlight. And the final performance wasn't the greatest for me. Kind of oversang and really pushed my vocal too far, and I kind of cacked on the day, and it was mortifying, truly. And I basically failed in front of Canada. That's how I definitely received it. But it was my greatest lesson, and it was my best teacher, because ever since that moment, I made it my goal and my singular focus to be a recording artist, to get back to that stage once again, and to prove to others and to myself that I'm better than what I did on that show. And so, failure was my best teacher in that. So I always embrace moments of failure, because in that you learn more than when you win. And so yes, I wanted to be a solo artist, but when the tenors called, I was in this whole world of the power of yes, because I had just watched What the Bleep Do We Know, and I was like, whatever comes into your life, you embrace it, because you don't really know what the path ahead is. You don't have all the answers.
Right.
You got to trust the universe is
Surrender.
exactly, surrender to what's coming. I'm like, I never heard the Canadian tenors. I'm not a tenor. I'm not classically trained. I'm like a pop country, you know, singer. And they're like, no, we want to complement the classical sound with a pop sound, and that with mosaic, that unique blend is what's going to create something different in the world. And I was like, all right, let's go for it. And immediately we took off. We were on Oprah, and we were on like Dr. Phil. We opened for the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. We sang the In Memoriam on the Emmys, like within a year and a half. So many things that just happened all of a sudden. And it was just like, it was a rocket. And we've just sort of been riding that wave and slowly growing our fan base ever since. So there's really been no time to think about anything other than growing this group, this gift, because you know more than most how rare it is to make music not just a passion but a career, and a successful one at that. So, man, there is room in this group for solo moments, and bringing your songs to the table and having them being presented with the harmonies of the group. So all of those feelings that are there aren't like just sort of like sitting there like, oh, I want to be a solo artist. It's not like that in this group. We're just so passionate and grateful to be in a group with the guys, because we see solo artists doing it, and it's tough, man. It's all on you, and sometimes you do it on your own, and we get to lean on each other, which is such a gift.
I think that, well, it's great to see your commitment to the group first off, and that obviously speaks volumes about the chemistry between you guys, and how you must all get along. But I think one of the things that really resonated with me is this idea that rejection and failure can be your most effective teachers in life.
Right.
And how did you develop the self-awareness to learn to process failure that way? Because it does often take the heart out of people who are more inclined to be motivated by external forces, right? If you're an artist, you are always, to some degree or another, pandering to an audience. You're trying to entertain people. So, how do you get to a place where you're like, I failed, but I learned enough from that that I'm going to be better, rather than being devastated by it?
Right. That's a really sort of deep question. Like, where did I learn to treat failure as a teacher, as opposed to beating me down and running away from my dreams? I think it comes from my mom and dad, honestly, and just the absolute, recklessness of their pursuits of the impossible. They had no right, you know, theoretically, to move into the middle of nowhere and build a resort from scratch, build a hydro dam in the middle of nowhere to create their own electrical grid to light up this resort floating on the water, and go and find people to come to them. You can't get, there's no roads. There's nothing there. You got to
This
get a
is
boat.
Port McNeill, British Columbia.
Yeah, and the resort was Nemo Bay Resort. It's a wilderness adventure resort, but it started out like a little podunk floating lodge on the water. And like, it's like nothing. It's $400 a day. Go fishing, and my mom's gonna cook, and my dad's gonna be guiding, and I'm gonna be, singing with my dad after dinner, old like Gordon Lightfoot and Stan Rogers songs. And this was, and the fact that this little resort with the owners that knew nothing about it, it became a five-star world renowned helicopter adventure resort, which is now rated the top 24 unique lodges of the world by National Geographic magazine. Is just like, holy crow. So just having that unapologetic belief in yourself and willingness to just power forward irrespective of what's in front of you, I think has just been instilled in us. And I had to get out there every night and sing with my dad in front of all these guests, and it was scary, because like, I'm trying to keep up with him. I'm this young kid, and these are like these older guys, and then it was families and corporate people, and it grew over the years. And I sang at that resort from like 8 till 23 every summer with my dad. And I just sort of honed that love and that passion for performing and for singing. And I just remember one time very specifically, we had like this world-renowned trumpeter in Jens Lindemann. He's a Canadian trumpeter, and this concert pianist was in there, and they're like, "Clifton, come on out and sing with them, and we're gonna do Josh Groban's 'You Raise Me Up,'" and I was like, super green. It's a tough song. It's in front of all these like big executives. I'm not prepared. I'm like shaking in my boots. I go into the kitchen and I just remember saying to myself, this is a moment right here. You either give up and you don't come out and be like, no, guys, I can't, while you're dying inside. And then you know you could never forgive yourself. Or you suck it up, you get out there, you grab those eagle-sized wing nerves and you channel it into your performance and let the adrenaline push you forward. And I think that's just sort of the decision I made. And then I learned from that, like, oh, just keep making that decision. And I think I'm also just desperate for people to love me. From day one, that's just sort of been something that I've always had to deal with. And I think as I get older and more mature, you see the unhealthy side of it and you sort of find balance in life. But if I'm being totally candid, my Achilles heel early on was like a desperate need to be loved. And so if I can get out there and be amazing and show people that I'm something special, I'll maybe get that. Whereas if you hide away and shy away, you're never going to get that. So that was also, I think, something that propelled me, being totally frank. Um,
But that
it-
that what you just described as a weakness is also an associated strength, right? Because it did force you to confront the imposter syndrome that was trying to infiltrate you.
yeah,
It did force you to learn that valiant failure is much more laudable than regret, right? And
yeah, I'd
not
rather
stepping
look
forward
back.
and
It's better
yeah,
to say I shouldn't have than I should have. Right?
absolutely.
That's always a motto that I live by as well. Like I don't want to live with that regret of what if. And I know it's sort of cliche, but it's just things are cliche for a reason because they're true. And I always wanted to, and I also wanted to, have my parents be really proud of me as well. I think that's something that we all want. And I want to get out there and make something myself. And I actually started in acting, and it's funny because acting is so brutal on the psyche. You go into 100 auditions, you're gonna get like two. So that's a lot of no. And you have to make a decision. No is defeat, or every audition is an opportunity to learn and grow to how to do it
Right.
better. I mean, in the same 10-year period, you got to believe that you're going to have the same opportunity as everybody else. It may come at day one, it may come, at the end of the ninth year, but you got to believe, you got to just keep moving forward and know that when the time comes, you're going to be ready and it's going to happen for you. And you got to believe, you got to believe, you got to
Hmm.
believe. It's just this weird thing where you're kind of a little delusional, but the delusion is sort of a magic pill that um, people are going to knock you for, but then in the end, it actually could be a benefit. So it's funny how everything really does have a light and a dark to it, and it's really how you use it. I think sometimes that determines what it becomes. It's not it's not how hard you get hit. It's how hard you get hit and get back up. I
There we
like
go. Rocky Balboa quote.
Rocky
I
Balboa.
love it. I love it.
That
No,
kind of
you're
stuff
right. And
just like gets me fired up.
right,
Those like
getting knocked down and getting back up, and you almost need delusion as part of your psychic pack or your psychology package in order to summon the energy to go back into the fray. And
right.
I
It's
think it was
crazy.
Winston Churchill that said something like, "Successful people uh, go from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm." Right,
I love that.
and
I love that. That
yeah,
sounds
and
like
that's
a
that
crazy
same
person.
idea.
That sounds like
Yeah,
a crazy person to me.
it
But
totally
right?
does. And for most of us, it's like, how much of it is me failing and learning versus the universe trying to tell me that this isn't the right career choice for me? And then
Right.
how do you delineate and discern one from the other, right? And when you're in
Yeah.
acting or in music where the rejection rate is just so high, and even when you start to make it and make a living at it, which you guys
Yeah.
have, there are certain bars or achievements or goals that I'm sure that you guys get close to but don't quite
Mm.
achieve, but you still got to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So
You're living
it's
in
good.
perpetual judgment, and you're living in sort of an element of like having to get to that next state, and then maybe then you'll feel safe. But that never comes. Like, I'll talk to like young singers, young actors, and they're sort of explaining the feeling that they're having. Like, oh man, it's so, I'm trying so hard, and I just gotta like get to the next level. I'm like, I feel the same way. Like, I just got a bigger mortgage and a bigger house, so the pressure is still there. But it's like I still live with that little voice saying, one bad show, and you're going back to bartending, bud.
Yeah.
That's there's it's that voice that, yeah, it could be a negative, but it could also be a positive. And we, the tenors, have been really fortunate that we've been surrounded by great people, and we brought in great people to work with us in a group setting and in a solo setting, like group therapy. And these really incredible people that have worked in an executive level with executive teams, but also other artists. And you work through the emotions of being in a group, of alpha males, and also understanding the power of passing the baton, um, uh, connecting on a spiritual level, embracing the differences as a strength, um, allowing competition to be a healthy impetus for growth as opposed to a battle stance. Just how to see things. You shift your perspective slightly, and
So
it's
let's
all in how you see stuff, really.
let's talk tactics and strategies on that front. We talked about your physical diet. What's your mental diet like? How do you stay on track? Do you have a coach? Do you read? Do you have
Right.
certain, do you even go back and watch a Rocky scene from a movie every now and then to pull up some motivation? Like, what do you do on a daily basis
Yeah.
to keep those doubts, fears, and worries at bay?
Meditation. If you want to start from the easiest way to transition from a fear-based, panic-based lifestyle into a grounded sense of self, that still has to go through those struggles, but does it with grace and a confidence from within, it's meditation. You can work out till you're blue in the face. You can eat all the healthy greens you want, but if you're not connecting with yourself, your source, the true you in here, you're always going to be just off center. And it's 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 work. It's process. You got to work at it. You can do it for a while, and you can be totally grounded and focused. Then you can kind of stop it, and you can feel yourself veering off center. And we all have different ways and different paths to get to source. But meditation in all its forms is just a really great number one tip for anyone who's just trying to like navigate what's going on up here. And find who that really is inside. Meditation's key. There's transcendental meditation. There's just breath work. There's more intensive stuff that you could do. But yeah, number one, I would say, and find some great. I love self-help books, man. They all say the same thing in a different way. Truly, like whether it's Deepak Chopra or Carolyn Mize or Elizabeth Kubler-Ross or whoever it is. Hicks, or I mean, the list goes on and on. You find that they're trying to say the same way in their own style. And a lot of it is like, find what you love and do it with all your heart. And trust the universe a little bit and believe in yourself. It's really simple. It's not, but it can be. The messaging can be. So, yeah. Also, I think for me is compassion, because when you have compassion for others, you have compassion for yourself, and that is so sorely missed. I think right now we're getting a little more polarized, and we're not going to go down that road. But I think when you have that compassion for someone, even the guy that you think is the biggest dick and like a piece of shit, they went through some crazy stuff that got them to that state. They probably had a really tough life or difficult upbringing, or maybe they're dealing with something and they don't have the education or the understanding or the parenting or whatever to give them the tools or even the mental and chemical makeup to get past their own indeficiencies. And so It's so easy to judge, but what you judge in others, you're usually just judging in yourself, and they are a projection of the stuff that you don't like about yourself. And it's funny how your self looks for those insecurities around the world, and you're more tapped into that. And you may not be saying it cognitively, like, oh, I'm selfish and vain. But when you see some vain, selfish person, you're like, that guy, what a doozy. But it's actually a way of your body processing what you hate about yourself. So just sort of being aware of that voice in your head that is puking out negativity.
Mhm.
Get a harness on that. Recognize that we're all one. We really are. And again, this is like deep, heady stuff, but I believe that we're all one, and we're all trying to get back to that connection with each other in some way. I find we get close to it through music, and that's why I love it so much. I didn't realize it when I got into this. I got into music for more selfish reasons, but as I grow in it, I understand what the music is doing for people with our fans, and we hear stories about, I was going to end my life, and I heard your song. My kid passed away, and I listened to your song to help me get through these pains. Or my simple stuff like, I'm an empty nester now, and like your music brings me healing, and your shows bring me back to those times. And you have a deep sense. I have a deep sense of responsibility for that, and for the music, and to really dig deep on the songs we choose and the songs we write and the message that we have. Our mantra has been now hope, harmony, hope, healing, and harmony. And that is sort of what we like to bring in our music. And it's not all serious. We have a lot of fun. We tell a lot of jokes, a lot of self-deprecating humor, and our music is upbeat too and energetic.
There's a lot of healing and humor too.
Yeah, but within that music and the message is there. That, like, if you're looking for a little bit of that, which I think we all are, come on out to a show. Pick up a CD, download, stream a tune, and I think you're gonna find something that'll help your spirit, and that's the hope for us.
Yeah, I love what you said earlier too about compassion, because it really is the key to understanding others, developing empathy, developing the tools to evaluate your own psyche, right?
Mm.
And here's the part that people don't want to hear, and they don't often tell you in self-help books, but you need to develop that forgiveness externally and internally, because if you're on a journey of self-improvement, you are going to fuck up, you're going to drop the ball, you're going to
True.
meditate for a week in a row, and then at some point something's going to come up and you're going to drop it, and you're going to get off that train for a while, but you got to get yourself back on it. And the only
Yeah.
way you can do that is by forgiving yourself and going, hey, it's okay, I screwed up, but guess what, I'm back on the wagon, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, and that's all we can do. It's not what you've done. It's like where you are right now, and what can you do today. And so, like, forgive it, and just start up again. You hear that a lot in AA too. A lot of people talk about that. It's just like you just keep going back to it, and every time it gets a little bit easier. And you asked me, like, what are some of the things that we do. I mentioned meditation, but I think gratitude is a really awesome word that is underappreciated. And it's sort of skipped over, like, oh yeah, gratitude, I understand that. Well, I don't. I sort of like trying to do a deep dive on what gratitude is, because it keeps coming up. And I think when you're on a journey and you're doing a lot of this, the seeking work, these things keep popping up. It's like, it's like, hey, go back to that, focus on that. It's like, hey, gratitude seems to be popping up all the time. Why is it there? And then in that work, in that process, I'm like, if you're in the state of gratitude, it's impossible to be depressed, angry, irritable, sad, all these things, because gratitude is taking the foreground. So how do you get into a state of gratitude? Pick 5 things in your life and just really think about how grateful you are for them, and look around at the most simple things in life that you have and realize what it would be like without them. Water.
yeah,
Most of the people on this planet don't have it. And it's a simple thing, but even family, or
the
friends.
health of your family and your loved ones and yourself, right? Like that's one that we all take for granted, but it's like,
Huge.
how important is that? If your kid is sick, really sick, or if you're really sick, like Confucius says, a healthy man has 1,000 wishes, a sick man only has one. right? And it's
Ooh,
like,
good line.
we don't even think about that half the time, and
Mm.
it's so important. And journaling, I think, is really effective too, because if you're having trouble reconnecting with that feeling of gratitude in your heart and soul, you can pull out your journal and read through what you've been grateful for, and that will
Yeah,
stimulate,
beautiful, beautiful.
yeah, some
Now,
new thoughts on that topic.
do you just do like like free like just not stopping and just the only rule is don't stop writing, or do you actually think about what you're writing?
I have a little blue book right here, and I have many of these,
Yeah.
but they are a combination of wisdom that I encounter in the real world
Mm.
and a gratitude journal. And I just sort of write down
Awesome, dude.
anything that anybody
Wow.
says that touches me. I write it down, and I write my
That's
gratitude
cool.
components in there as well. And
Love.
then, yeah, that's a little book that goes with me
I
everywhere I
love
go.
that. I think Fraser in the group is the biggest journaler of all of us. He's got these little red books, and he's constantly writing in them, and he's journaling, and he's really passionate about that work, journaling, journeying, and meditation, and all that stuff. So he's also a great source as well. And he's funny. He's got this it's very similar little red books with the black strap, and he's always busting out and writing it down. I use my iPhone. I have all these voice notes sometimes, but usually it's my notes, and I'm usually writing down a thought, and it ends up usually being like a lyric or an idea for a song or a concept that I'm building, self discovery around, so. Um, Journaling definitely is a powerful tool um, for self awareness.
Yeah, and I
Definitely.
think too that, it pertains to my own situation, as a manager, as an agent, as somebody who works with artists all the time. I think you have to walk the walk. I think that if you want to talk about the effectiveness of these tactics and strategies, you have to have some real world experience with them
Mhm.
and actually implement them in your own life. Because it's really hard to convince someone to meditate for even 10 minutes a day if you don't have the real world experience with how it has profoundly affected you in your life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. No, for if you're listening to this, meditation has profoundly affected my life. So if that helps you at all getting over the hump, take it from me and Jim. Do a little homework on what meditation works for you, and give it a shot. And here's a simple start out tool for meditation. Just sit in silence, because I know everyone's big excuse for not meditating is like, I can't not think. And meditation is not about not thinking. It's really about just focusing on one thing, like either your breath, or in transcendental meditation, it's a mantra, which is just one word. So just sit there and just focus on your breath going in and out. And the second you find yourself thinking about something, don't judge yourself. Don't go, oh shit, I'm thinking again.
Mhm.
Just acknowledge it. Oh, that's me thinking, and go back to the mantra or go back to your breath. And it's that simple. And when you realize you don't have to get mad at yourself or think that you're failing because you're thinking, and that like everyone's going to think in meditation, no matter what anyone says. If they say otherwise, they're lying to you. Just bring yourself back to the breath or the one word, and it's so simple. And do it for 5 minutes, and you'll feel better. And then stretch
Yeah.
it out and try and do it if you can get to 20 minutes a day. That's great. I just did a 21-day meditation challenge where you have to do journaling, you have to do like drawings, you have to call up people that have hurt you or you've hurt, or people that you care about, and ask them their dreams and aspirations and biggest regrets in life. And it's hard to do, but you get some really incredible lessons out of it. And then you have to start your own um, meditation, so you have to invite people to, and then you lead them. So you send them the meditation every day. You send them the job that they have to do that day, whether it's like journaling for 20 minutes or doing this research or reading this book. And then you sort of get empowered, because you have to be responsible for these people. So the Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation challenge is a good place to start.
I was going
Or
to
like
ask you
look at,
where you got it. And so
Yeah,
people can just check that out on their own, right? They can Google that, Deepak
just go to
Chopra,
Deepak Chopra 2021
21
day
day.
um, uh, meditation challenge. Yeah,
The other
abundant.
tactic that I would throw
Mhm.
out there too for people who are listening, who most of the people who listen to this podcast, they're artists,
Yeah,
and creative souls have busy minds. It's just they go hand in hand, right? If you're a creative soul, you're always generating ideas, and some of those ideas are malignant, at times. So
good word.
starting small, right? Like
Yeah,
I another thing that I love to integrate in my own life and implement, and I encourage other people, is start with a daily minimum. So I like the 5 minute idea, but listen, if for you, you have to start with 1 minute, set a timer on your phone. Everybody has a phone, and just silence for 1 minute, focus on your breathing. Maybe the next day you get to 90 seconds. Maybe at
yeah,
the end of a week you're at 5 minutes, but at least you start the journey. And you have to make that barrier of entry low enough to
yeah.
get people to get started. Because,
Hmm.
when I hear 20 minutes a day, even though I don't have a problem doing that now, there was a time years ago where I go, what? I can't sit in silence for 20 minutes a day and breathe. That's not going to work. But if somebody
Yeah,
says, well, what about 60 seconds? It's like, well, I can do that. You know,
I hear that so often. It's crazy. Yeah, a breath work is another one. 4 seconds in, two
yeah.
second hold, 8 seconds out, two
Are you a
second
Wim
hold.
Hof fan?
Yeah, yeah, Corey. Cold showers every morning, man.
Good
Yeah,
man.
yeah. It
I
works
love
too.
it.
It slows the heart rate down, makes you healthier. It clears up the cobwebs. It wakes up the face, and it's a good one. It's tough. I do like a regular shower, and then I finish with a 1 minute cold blast, or 30 seconds, or however long I can handle it.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how I get my day going. Fraser does it as well. He's a big Wim Hof guy, but it works. It sounds terrible, but you actually start loving it because nothing wakes up your mind and your body and your face like a cold shower. That's just like immediate. You think like getting a hot shower to warm things up, like no, I think it does the opposite. You got to blast yourself with that cold air and cold water. I do like the cryo, but I don't think it works the same. Like cold water is way better. I find you can only
Yeah,
do that
cold
like
water just has a penetrative effect to you where it just like hits you so much harder than the cold air. And
hmm
I mean,
we did
listen,
that,
anything is good. That's the thing that people should take away from this. Like, if
right?
you do 30 seconds of a cold shower, or maybe you fall in love with cryo and you've got a place that you go to regularly, it's all good.
Yeah.
But as you start to refine your journey, you'll realize that there are some things that just feel a
That
whole
just
lot
spreads
more impactful.
towards you. Yeah, and just do what works for you. Find your path. There's so many opportunities out there. There's so many paths to go down. So, yeah. You don't have to do what we're saying, but it'll
Yeah.
hopefully send you somewhere that you find something that works for you. I like Wayne Dyer. He's a really cool guy. Confucius, that you just sort of like paraphrase his line, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Like that's like the most popular,
Mhm.
line from Confucius, and sort of Wayne Dyer does like a modern day interpretation of it, and it's very valuable. Whether you're an artist or you're an executive or you're just someone dealing with life and family and whatnot, he's really cool. And if you're not big onto like reading, but you like to run, throw on, throw it in your ears, and the speaking version, and just listen to it on your run, and that way you can feel like you're doing something, or do it when you're
Yes.
driving, and you learn some lessons as opposed to sitting there with a book that some people just can't do. So
Yeah,
I like the
I've become a huge
audiobooks.
consumer of audiobooks. They're my saving grace now.
Yeah.
Workouts, running. I mean, sometimes I still like music, obviously, for a workout. If it's
What gets you so jacked?
well, thank you first off.
Gee, good.
I I I have a pretty hardcore regime. So
Yeah,
I
I think so.
roll jujitsu.
Wow.
I do these small, like, 30-minute hit workouts,
Mm.
high intensity workouts where there's basically no break. Um,
I
and
intense.
then
Yeah.
I love to do sauna workouts. I just installed a new sauna in my house. I'll heat that up to 200 degrees. I'll go in there and swing a kettlebell for 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Damn.
And then I'll either get submerged in cold water, or last night I went out and rolled around in the snow in my yard.
Yeah,
So
that you're serious. Forget Wim Hof. Go to Cressman.
yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. Well, I found
Wow.
when I became a father, I mean, I was always athletically inclined, and I used to box and wrestle and play football in high school and all that stuff. But when I started having kids 9 years ago, I really found that I needed to find a place to channel any anxiety so I could show up and be the best dad possible. And so
Awesome.
that really was my impetus to, just hammer it out and go for it and try all these challenges physically and mentally and force myself into a place where I can be proud of myself, and if you're proud of yourself, it it alleviates insecurities. And if you alleviate insecurities, you alleviate anxiety. So it's
Yeah,
this
dude.
whole process.
And then you alleviate in others because you remove the element of concern when people are in your presence. And that's the magic of being grounded in yourself is like soon as people see that you have no concerns, they can stop worrying about their own. But if you come out, especially if you're on stage and you hold that element of like, oh shit, people pick up on that and then
Yeah,
they get tense.
that's
And no one
right.
wants to sit in a concert for 2 hours and feel tense. You know, they'll go to a horror movie to do that. But to remove that element of concern, I'm quoting Jim Carrey, but that's such a magical thing too. It's just sort of like give people, create the space for people to walk into this element of no concern, and it's a magical thing that's addictive that people want to come back to. So as an artist, as a performer, I think that's really cool, and I think Kissel does it really well too. In his social media and on stage, he's just so like welcoming and so warming and so confident and so fun and so bubbly that it's just infectious, and people want to be around that energy. And I think the guy that
He
does it best of
definitely,
all, yeah,
yeah, he definitely likes to be liked, but he is also sincerely one of the nicest people, most thoughtful people.
yeah,
He's just a beauty. So grateful to work with that guy. Sorry, you
yeah,
were going to say the person who does it best.
Garth Brooks. He's just
Undoubtedly, man.
the greatest entertainer performer of all time. Like the guy
Have
could
you
do
met
it
him?
of 100 million people. Like a million, if the venue was big enough, a million people would show up to that. Even
Have
now,
you met Garth?
I have. Yes, I have. We did a gig.
Interacted with him?
We did a gig in Minnesota, and it was a big charity gig. And he was one of the artists. There was like 6 artists. It was us and Garth and I'm like I think Lionel Richie and I'm forgetting the others because my idol is Garth Brooks, and that's the only guy I ever wanted to meet. And we're finally at this venue, and I'm like having a conversation with him, and he was just such a regular guy. That's the
Yeah.
crazy thing is when you build this guy up, and you finally meet him, and he's just so cool and calm and talking about family and everything. And it was around sound check we were chatting, and then I was literally the next 2 hours. I'm like, oh my god! I'm like opening up for Garth Brooks. This is crazy. I can't believe it. And then he got a call from his home, I think it was Oklahoma or something, and his daughter had a soccer accident. And he just drove to the jet and flew home and didn't do the gig. And I was like, what? No. But family first, which
That's
was
Garth.
made me love him even more. So that was a pretty big pinch me moment. My dad's always like, did you get him up to Nemo Bay? I'm like, Dad, I'm not gonna come in hot right away. Okay? No matter what
Yeah.
I do.
Pitch him hard.
Oh,
Pitch him
every time
hard.
I tell it my dad I met someone awesome, whether it's like Greg Ski or who knows some king or prime minister or Russian oligarch, he's like, did you tell him about Nemo? I'm like, no, Dad. That wasn't my first thing out of my mouth.
Oh, I love it though. It's parents are the
Consummate
best, man.
salesman, man. Consummate salesman.
Yeah, yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So, as it pertains to the tenors, one of the things that I really admire about what you guys have been able to do musically is you've been able to take this genre of operatic pop and make it cool and make it relatable for younger audiences and people
Yeah.
who are from an older generation who gravitate to that kind of music naturally
Yeah,
because it
yeah, right.
speaks to a time in their life. And you guys have done a good job at separating yourself from the El Divos and the other acts out there that might say that they're sort of part of that genre.
Yeah.
How have you set yourself apart in your own estimation? Because that's my evaluation
Yeah.
from the outside looking in.
No, it's a great evaluation. I appreciate that. I mean, first of all, we're not huge fans of operatic pop. Um, But I guess if it keeps coming back around, we just have to accept that that's part of people's interpretation of what we do. We are there is operatic elements, there is pop, there's also folk and rock. We do Queen, we do Dylan and Leonard Cohen, and we also do classical. We do some musical theater like songs that are like timeless. But I think what really separates us is the fact that it is pop artists, like full on. I'm not classically trained. I know nothing about opera. And but you know, Victor is incredibly versed in that world, did that in Florence in Italy for 6 years, could be soloing at the Met if he wanted, but he's a part of this group, and what a gift that is for us. You know, and Fraser kind of goes between both worlds. He's pop sensibility, but he's also classically trained, and he was in like a 12-part a cappella group. So his like understanding of like, you know, really complex harmony is pretty incredible. And so I benefit from that immensely. And but what sets us apart, I think, is that, but also our songwriting. So we're all songwriters. We have been our whole lives. You know, I've been writing songs since I was 14 and singing them at the guest in Nemo Bay, and that was my focus, was to be a recording artist with the songs that I write. And as the career in the tenors evolved, we just kept bringing more and more of that to the table, and the response was very strong from the label and from the artist, from the fans. So we just kept doing it. Where the first album, I think we didn't have any originals. The second one we had, I think, 2, and then it was 4, and then it was 8. And to where we've had conversations of a full original album, and we're doing like full on like luminaires, like Sons of Leon types music, you know, with the 4 on the floor and like the heavy guitar and the drums and then we've also like done full on dance music. People, like some fans know, like Drowning in Love, like it's a freaking club dance song. Like you're not going to
Well,
hear.
that's one of the great things about what you guys have built in terms of a brand. You're not defined and confined to a format that needs to sound a certain way.
Right.
You have the ability to just gravitate to great songs and let the production take that song wherever it goes.
And it's cool in a live experience because you're not going to hear the same like classical crossover ballad over and over and over again. You know, you're going to hear some like the most epic classical song like from Turandot, you know, Nessun Dorma, and you're going to hear like this like 4 on the floor driving upbeat awesome like summertime jam, and you're going to hear like your favorite musical theater dude. Then you're going to hear like Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan, and all these like great songwriters, and we're going to do our twist on it in a unique way, and a lot of inspirational songs with a great positive message. And so like there's a lot of hills and valleys in our show, and I think that's why our live show is so strong and has had legs over the years, is because when people come to a show, they leave like really transformed, and the response is great, and we come back to that demo the next year, and there's more people showed up because word of mouth has been great. So yeah, I think just not like trying to be locked into a certain style has really been beneficial, and opening ourselves up to a lot of different collaborations, which is one that I want to bring up right now with you, Jim. I think that you will dig this. I have a feeling you're going to like this. So today, right now, as we speak, we just released our single with NBC's The Voice winner, Jake Hoot. He is a big country singer from Nashville, and what a great killer voice. He won The Voice. He was on Kelly Clarkson's team, and he had been a big fan of the Canadian tenors for all these years. And when he was on the finale of the show, they were going to sing Whiskey Lullaby, him and Kelly Clarkson.
Mm.
And Kelly Clarkson said, "Hey, congrats, you won the show. We need to do a song, but it's got to be a Christmas song." And he suggested that they duet our rendition of Sarah McLachlan's Winter Song, because we did it with Sarah McLachlan on our album, and we rearranged it, and we gave Sarah this whole new part. Well, she kind of created it, I should say, but we arranged this duet of her song, and he loved that version, and he brought that version to Kelly into the band, and everyone loved it. So they performed that song on the finale of The Voice, He wins the show. We obviously shoot him over, DMs and social media, giving him some shout outs. And we kind of kept this relationship going for a little bit. We did some fun social media stuff. And he just reached out a couple months ago and he says, I'm doing my first Christmas single. I want to write it with you guys. Are you down? And we're like, absolutely. And so we're talking about it, and he sends us this song that was partially done that he'd created with this other guy in Nashville, Marty Goetz, Goetz. And we took it and we did some rewriting on it. We arranged some things. And so we did some back and forth, and he loved our changes lyrically and melodically. And we just recorded it last month in Nashville, and we released it today. It's been out for about 6 hours, and it's called When Christmas Has Come and Gone. And it's a really soul stirring song about a man about your age that goes back to his childhood home, brings his young kids, tucks them in, and is walking down the hallway and seeing all the pictures of his childhood. And maybe his parents aren't there anymore. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Maybe he misses his grandparents, but he reflects on what the really important, what's powerful about this time of year. It's about being around the family, and reflecting on those that may have passed on. And those are the gifts that keep coming around every year, is this opportunity to come together as family and appreciate what we have and what we had. And it's great. And so we recorded a music video and a live performance that's going to air on Kelly Clarkson's show December 4th, I believe. So it's a country tune. I mean, it starts with Jake Hoot, and it's full country. And so we got to do ourselves a country song. So we're going to be pushing it to country radio here really soon up in Canada. I hope you guys get into it. Check it out. It just came out now, and we're really super stoked and passionate about this song and our collaboration with Jake Hoot, when Christmas has come and gone.
Oh, congratulations on that, and the big hit single that's out right now with Tyler Shaw and the Canadian tour. You guys are the first to pull right back with a major tour in these crazy times, and we want you to stay healthy. Wish you luck with it. Thanks for taking the time to do this today, man. It was a pleasure and an honor getting to meet you. And
Yeah,
know you.
unexpected pleasure myself, Jim. You're a great dude, and you're putting out a lot of positive energy in the world, man. So I really appreciate what you do.
Look forward to seeing you in person one of these days.
Amen, brother. Right
Thanks
back at you.
again.
Bye.